For most people, the name Sophie Scholl doesn't really ring a bell. But here in Germany, everybody knows about her. National TV named her the most important German woman of the 20th century. And the youth of this nation voted her the greatest German who has ever lived. And all this, even though she only lived to be 21 years old. So who was this Sophie Scholl? Well, if she would have been around to answer that question herself, I'm sure she would have said, I am a Christian. But Sophie wasn't just any Christian, but one who was convinced that the Word of God can't just be heard. You have to live it, and you have to stand up for it, even in times when you might stand alone. Sophie Magdalene Scholl was born on May 9th, 1921 in Fortenbach, Germany, and was only 12 years old when the Nazis took over in her homeland. To indoctrinate the young generation as quickly and early as possible to do anything for their leader, almost every German child was recruited to Hitler Jugend, Hitler Youth. Sophie joined when she was 14. She got to march in uniform. She learned that she was such an important part of her nation and how her race was superior above all others. At first, it was exciting. The pride of being taken seriously, that the nation counted on her, that she could give her life for something big, something noble. But more and more, something started to feel wrong. Sophie's father had raised her a Christian and had taught his daughter that all men are created in the image of God, all precious, all equal. And in her teenage years, she started to realize that what Hitler was saying was actually something completely different. She was shocked when her best friend, a Jewish girl, was denied her human rights. And when Germany invaded Poland in 1939, Sophie finally fully realized that the message of the Nazi party she was part of was actually the complete opposite of the message of the God she believed in. In May of 1942, at the age of 20, Sophie moved to Munich to study here at Ludwig Maximilian University. By this time, she had seen so much injustice, so much hatred, and so much humiliation, especially toward the Jewish people, that she knew in her heart that she had to do something. How could she even call herself a Christian, she asked herself, if she wouldn't stand up for Jesus and for truth in the darkest hours of her nation? The Nazi reign of terror meant that standing up against Hitler would mean a certain death. She knew that, but she was determined to do it anyway, and to do whatever she could for as long as she would survive. Sophie and her brother Hans rented a small student flat in this house on Franz Joseph Street. And what happened here was nothing short of history. The two siblings, together with two friends, formed what they called the White Rose, an underground resistance group that, based on faith in Jesus Christ, would try to do whatever they could to wake the German people up and encourage resistance against Hitler. They bought a typewriter and an old manual duplicating machine, and they started writing letters against the Nazi ideology. Then they copied these letters by the thousands and mailed them out secretly to influencers and decision makers all over Germany, as well as placing stacks of letters in public places all over Munich, like restaurants and schools and restrooms, for people to pick them up and read the message. And to this day, the letters of the White Rose are legendary examples of civil Christian resistance against the diabolical dictatorship.
Nothing is so unworthy of a civilized nation as to not speak out in protest while governed by an irresponsible group that follows their own unworthy instincts. Every word that comes from Hitler's mouth is a lie. When he says peace, he means war. When he uses the name of the Almighty, he means the power of evil, the fallen angel Satan. His mouth is nothing but the smelly mouth of hell. Since the invasion of Poland, 300,000 Jews have been murdered in this nation in the most horrible way. This is one of the worst crimes against all humanity, one that is unprecedented in all of history. If the German people are already so spiritually damaged that they do not lift a hand against what is happening, if they have given up on man's supreme gift, the one that raises her above all of God's other creatures, our own free will, if they abandon their will to act and turn back the wheel of history, if they have already gone so far down the path of the cowardly mass, then they deserve their own destruction. But in all times of great trials, prophets and saints have stood up, men and women of God who cherished their freedom, who preached the one true God and stirred the people to action. Man is free, but without God, we are defenseless in the battle against evil. We are lost ships in the storm, we are infants without their mother, clouds that dissolve into thin air. If you're a Christian but hesitate and wait, hoping someone else would raise his arm in your defense, has not God given you strength? Has not God given you the will to fight? We must attack evil where it is strongest, and its greatest power is Hitler. Only faith can reawaken Europe. Only faith can give people back their rights and restore true Christianity on earth as the only guarantee of peace. We will never grow silent. We are your bad conscience. The white rose will not leave you in peace.
The letters of the White Rose spread like wildfire all over Germany during the summer, fall and winter of 1942. Gestapo, the German police, was convinced that they had come from a large national underground organization, and they worked like crazy to find and to stop it. No one even imagined that these letters that affected more and more people and helped them understand that the Nazi message was contrary to God and His Word came from a handful of Christian teenagers. Sophie, Hans, and their friends knew that it was only going to be a matter of time until the Nazis found them, arrested them, and executed them. But they wanted to use the time they had in the best way possible. On February 18th, 1943, Sophie and Hans were walking these university halls with bags full of the 5th letter of protest against Hitler. With only minutes left before the bell would ring, they walked up to every single door and put a stack of these letters right outside the door to the lecture halls, so that when the thousands of students would come out, they would all grab one copy each. When the bell rang, Sophie was standing right on this spot, up on the balcony, overlooking the students below. She saw her own generation, now faced with the choice of either blindly following a diabolical leader further into darkness, or to turn back to God and build a society based on love and peace and equality. Sophie's heart stirred inside of her, and she took a stack, the final stack, of that 5th letter of protest against Hitler, and she threw it out from the balcony. Surely she must have known when she saw the letters rain down over the students that she would be discovered and caught. But at that point, probably her own life and safety was the last thing on her mind. If only she could help the youth of Germany to wake up. Sophie and Hans were arrested immediately, and the Nazis now found out that the White Rose that had caused them so much fear only really consisted of a handful of Christian students. Hitler wanted to get rid of this embarrassment as quickly as possible. So after a quick mock trial, without any defense, Sophie and her friends was sentenced to execution. And as these young people were led to the guillotine to be beheaded, Sophie looked up at the clear sky and said, "Such a beautiful day, and I have to go. But my life is a small price to pay if only my actions can lead to thousands of people being warned and alerted." And the very last words of 21-year-old Sophie Scholl, before her head was separated from her body, was, "My God, my refuge into eternity." But as an amazing and completely unexpected final chapter to the story of Sophie Scholl and the White Rose, it turned out they had actually written one more letter, one that they never had the chance to distribute. This letter was smuggled out of Germany, through Scandinavia, and finally to England, where it ended up in the hands of the Allied forces. And to honor the courage, determination, and selflessness of a German Christian girl named Sophie Scholl, the Allies printed millions and millions of copies of her sixth letter, loaded the copies on bomber aircrafts, flew in over Germany, opened the hatches, and let Sophie's call to stand up for God and resist the evil rain down over all the nation. The letters she saw float down in the university auditorium now rained down for several months over her entire nation and her people. And today, marble replicas of that last letter of Sophie Scholl and the White Rose, the one that rained down over Germany, are embedded in the streets of Munich as a testament to the courage of a young Christian girl who lived her entire short life according to her motto, "I will stand for truth, even if I stand alone."